everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Clara Benitez Cortez, and we're talking about a very important topic, really just difficulty in teaching in our schools. We recently had an article with neighborhood news reporter Tyrese Boone out of Kingsville, and we have Nancy Vera. She is the president of, I believe, what's the organization?
Corpus Christi American Federation of Teachers.
Okay, that's a long name,
yes,
but this is why I had Nancy say it. And she's here to discuss that article with us, and also just some of those concerns that I think a lot of parents and teachers that are obviously throughout the Coastal Bend have with the difficulty of now teaching our generation. So, Nancy, thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
So first, tell me, you read the article.
Yes.
And I just want to read the first little line here. It says, teachers at Gillette Middle School say classrooms are becoming increasingly difficult to manage, and educators like longtime teacher Roberta Bliss says they've reached their breaking point. Do you see this on a day-to-day basis?
Good for her for speaking out, because many teachers are afraid to say anything for fear of retaliation. But the fact of the matter is our communities should be alarmed at the behavior of some of our students, starting from pre-K through high school. And we see that very commonly among our teachers, especially our union members, our teacher union members. All our educators need to be quite vigilant, but our educators also need to know that there's a law that doesn't allow that to happen. Our parents need to be vigilant. We have a lot of violence in our classrooms. We have students who perhaps in pre-K or kindergarten had not been diagnosed appropriately or cannot be according to law. So if, for example, there are special needs students, they're not getting the service that they need in order to behave appropriately in the classroom. I've seen teachers who have been bitten, students who have been bitten, stabbed with pencils, and most recently, the vulgarity is beyond compare. We have been dealing with teachers who have been blamed for some of this behavior by their administrators. But frankly speaking, these students who are not receiving the services that they need in order to behave appropriately are not getting our danger to themselves and other students in the classroom. And we as educators, we care about our children. But I am encouraging, as a teacher union president, if a student is incorrigible, if that student is spewing vulgarity or being violent in any sort of way by stabbing, throwing, kicking, and hurting or bashing a teacher in the face, as has happened, we need to report it, and we need to file charges with the Corpus Christi Police Department, and if there's a police department in their district, the teachers need to file that. And so do paraprofessionals, custodians, anyone who is an employee of any public school.
Would you say that is the turning point in potentially getting something done, is filing charges with a student or those parents if something like this were to happen, like a stabbing or a biting or something like this?
We would hope, but the fact of the matter is we would hope that it could be handled at the school level. But these days, educators and public schools do not have the resources they need to be able to assist the students and teach them better. To have those classes like we used to have a few years ago on parental advice. We don't have those conferences anymore like we used to have.
Talk to me about the parental advice.
Well, I think that some parents are at a loss. They don't know how to discipline, or in other ways talk to the student. They don't know that there are resources available outside of the school setting to help the student and that behavior. And sometimes the parents just give up. Oh, they'll give them the iPhone or the phone, or they'll give them their PlayStation and say, play with this. And that's why you hear a lot of people say that you may think this is a cliche, but the fact of the matter is when you see 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds playing on those little games at the restaurants so that their parents don't have to deal with them, that is teaching behavior that is unacceptable. Because what they'll likely do is in the classroom, they'll exhibit that same behavior of wanting to play on these types of games that are not available. We have to teach them the alphabet. We have to teach them about literature. We have to teach them about math, social studies, and we can't do that if they're distracted by those things. So in other words, when they play on those games, some parents are using those as a method of discipline or as a method of keeping the student quiet or the child quiet, instead of teaching them values, teaching them civility, teaching them manners, respect, and that's a problem. So teachers and the school districts don't necessarily need to have that responsibility of teaching parents how to be parents, but maybe that's what we need.
Yeah. Well, we do see a lot of those kids out there with their parents are eating, like you said, on the phone, on the iPads. But now CCISD, is not allowing, obviously, even high schools to have their phone. Do you see that is actually happening? Is it changing anything? Is there progress?
Yes, it's much better. But the fact of the matter is, you can't monitor every student the entire time they were in school. I just had a case where a student who had their head down sleeping in the classroom and was on the phone, and the teacher didn't know, and she had it under her desk like this. And the question is, what do you do with a student like that? What happened in this particular case is the teacher was blamed instead of the student taking responsibility for, one, having the phone out, two, spewing vulgarity. She didn't take responsibility for it. It was all on the teacher. That's a problem.
Yeah. So here on this article, I just want to read this quote from that teacher. I have had kids climbing on tables, falling out of their seat, making noises, tapping. Mostly it's talking, the nonstop talking, said Bliss, a 6th grade English teacher. And Bliss, who has taught for nearly 18 years, says the stress and consistent disruption have become too much to handle. And I think she's no longer working there, obviously. But we also had some anonymous teachers who say that we're not seeing the support of parents. We need their support. We need their part. It's a whole community. And Bliss submitted her resignation to Kingsville ISD this week, which is part of the article, which was last week. So have you seen that? Kids climbing on tables, talking, the nonstop talking, making noises, where these teachers can't teach the kids. But what about those kids that want to learn? And maybe the kids that just want to be disruptive? We have here one of the comments that says, let me go ahead and say, my solution has always been to move all the challenging kiddos to one cohort and let the kids that want to learn have the opportunity. I would still teach the challenging kids, but their behavior wouldn't disrupt the learning of everybody else. What do you think about that?
Well, that's a slippery slope, because you can't really put students who are challenges in one class. There are several laws in place, and if you're talking about students with special needs, you can't do that kind of thing. That's pie in the sky type of thinking. And even though that might be ideal for some people, that's not reality. The reality is that we have children and we have students who don't know how to behave. And I think that as long as we allow them to behave that way at home, that they'll continue to behave that way. Now, we can do the blaming game and say, well, no, it's the teacher's fault. No, it's the principal's fault. No, it's the parent's fault. But reality, it's all our fault. I remember talking to a former assistant police chief here locally, and he said, Nancy, I don't know how teachers do it. He said, when we have incorrigible people or they're violent people, we have a baton or we have a pepper spray or we have a gun. Teachers don't have anything and they can't do anything. And I said, that's correct. Now, if we want to do better, we must, at all costs, try and teach parents and teach the students what is correct behavior and what is incorrect behavior. We need more money for psychologists, social workers, more counselors, which we're short of, and ubiquitously, and we're short because of the behavior. Look, teachers are responsible for teaching a curriculum, and if they don't teach that curriculum, they are written up, harassed, reprimanded if they don't teach the curriculum. If somebody does a walkthrough, that is, administrators go into their classrooms and they see teachers who are perhaps dealing with behavior, or they're not teaching what they're supposed to teach at any given time because they're supposed to be on a schedule, they can get written up. And the fact of the matter is, how do you discipline a child or deal with a child if you can't if you're going to be trying to teach the curriculum? What do you do? And the fact of the matter is that teachers have more students in their classroom. Their classrooms are packed with at least 22 to 25 students. And some high schools now have up to, some electives, for example, have 60 to 100 students for whom they're responsible at a time. How does that work? It's all a matter of money. And it's all a matter of funding of public schools, which we're not getting enough of. As it is right now, for example, in special education, the funding has been cut for special education students. We need that funding. Otherwise, what is our community going to look like? Our community, our schools are a reflection of the future of our community. And is that what Corpus Christi is going to look like? More and more, I see younger people getting arrested or getting charged with certain things because they don't know appropriate behavior and they don't respect other people's space. So I think that we have to really look at this closely and say, wait a minute, we cannot allow that. But like I said, teachers are very kind. They don't want to file assault charges. They love their children. But I can show you where teachers have been bitten and blood is spewing out of their arm. And the principal, because the principal is afraid too of getting retaliated against or at least being written up, not sending that particular teacher to the doctor to get a tetanus shot or to treat the wound until after school or on their own time. What is that about? Why are we living in that kind of society? We should be more open. And if our children are in a classroom with children who are incorrigible like that or who have special needs, then parents need to speak up and speak out. They're the ones that have the strongest voice. And I don't care, like for example, and I'll give you one example. There was a teacher who was pregnant and she was having trouble with a student who was very, very violent, physically violent. She complained 2 weeks later, and they said, give us 2 weeks, we're going to put somebody else in there. Within the 2-week time period, she was hit in the stomach with a chair leg, just hit. She was so traumatized. Not only does that impact her, the unborn child, but it impacts her physically and mentally. What do you do in those cases? Why didn't the district do something about it? That's a concern. And if people think, oh, no, that doesn't happen in the school. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. And that's why sometimes when people see me upset or people see me angry, it's because I see what's happening in our schools and the fact that people are ignoring the pleas and the cries of educators across this area.
And you represent a lot of them, obviously, and you speak with them.
Yes, I do. We represent 5 school districts here in this area, but also we go to the national level. We have a national affiliate with the union, the American Federation of Teachers. And I just came back from Detroit from a Human and Civil Rights and Women's Conference, and I heard stories there from other presidents from across the state and across the nation. It's ubiquitous. We need to do better.
Yeah, we do. So obviously we have some viewers that were offering those solutions, right? They're telling you remove the kiddos with the challenging ones, the ones that want to work, or we have here, I'm going to read this comment that we have here. It says, parents need to start being held accountable. They have no control of their kids. Though we think because they go to school from 7:30 to 4:30, it's a teacher's problem, not parents' problem. Start calling them in, start sending them kids home. I can guarantee the parents are going to do something, or they're going to put their jobs in jeopardy getting called from school a lot. There are a lot of ways to fix the problem.
Well, that's easier said than done. I mean, if you have a student who has special needs and they have certain criteria that you have to meet in order, that would be simple. It's not that simple. We have students with other problems at home, some who are homeless, some who don't have parents, some who are in foster care. So it varies. You have to take each situation individually, but as a whole, what we need to do is try to help the parents, teach the parents on how to discipline the students. We cannot, for example, send kindergartners home. We cannot send pre-kinder students home. We cannot diagnose those children with special needs at that point, at that level. So they're not getting the assistance they need. We need to have other type of protocols in order to deal with discipline, because you cannot suspend a kindergartner or pre-care. Now the older students, we need to be more assertive in terms of the principals going in and saying, you cannot do this, you cannot do that, and suspending them if they're not on any special plan. But the fact of the matter is, we just need to all be vigilant and understand what teachers are going through this and not be so eager to say, this is how you correct the problem. Because remember too, our public schools are funded by average daily attendance. So many of our public schools, because they're so strained, financially strained, are going to have to keep the students in school in order to get that money that they need in order to continue operations.
So tell me about the Safe Schools Act. I think you mentioned about that.
Yes, the Safe Schools Act is an act that was passed years ago, and we have it online where you can, the teacher can ask for the student to be removed the first time, for example, after warning, the first time until there's a parent conference. After the parent conference, there are other steps to finally, at the end of that, unless it's an urgent matter like being physically hit in the face, stuff like that, they can have the student removed from their classroom. Unfortunately, though, then the other teacher has to deal with that situation. Sometimes it helps because of the different personalities, and sometimes it does not. But I would encourage any educator, paraprofessionals, nurses, anyone to please Google the Safe Schools Act. And if you want to go to the Texas American Federation of Teachers, we have that Safe Schools Act in its entirety, even with form letters of how to do that. And I would encourage people, right now is the time, especially if you're in public education, to join your professional organizations. This is not a matter of, oh, I don't have enough money. Well, the fact of the matter is, if you don't have a job, or if you've been beaten, you're not going to have any money anyway. I know that it's very difficult, and people don't understand sometimes the role of professional organizations or unions. We're the union in this community. Then I understand that. But the fact of the matter is, you cannot sit back anymore. You cannot, because of the threats, the violence, the threat of retaliation and vengeance. You cannot sit back. You need some help. You need to find someone who's going to support you and who knows the laws and who knows the ins and outs of the system in order to be effective and feel safer in the classroom. And that goes for parents too. You need to know what is going on in your schools with your children. And if there is a child in your child's classroom who is incorrigible, who is being violent, and if your child gets hit or in some way hurt or is hearing vulgarity or being bullied in some sort of way, then call your school board members. Call them. Insist that they do something about it. Call the superintendent. Call them 10, 20, 30 times a day. Send them emails. Do whatever you can, because the power of the voice of the parent is utmost. It's paramount. So call the school. Don't even call the principal, because sometimes it's out of the principal's hands. Call the administrators downtown. Call the superintendent especially.
Yeah. Well, Nancy, thank you so much for speaking about this topic. I know it's something that goes on every single day, day to day.
Yes.
And you obviously speak with these teachers, and you also speak with these parents also that have these kids. Anything else that you would like to add in regards to, I think, just this topic and it just being more difficult for teachers to teach and having to essentially focus on the discipline or focus on them not hurting other students or themselves, and hopefully teaching?
I'd like to tell educators, from custodians to paraprofessionals to maintenance workers to teachers to nurses to counselors to librarians, that the union is here to support them, and that there are people in this community who support them, regardless of what they hear on social media or what they hear in the news, that there are people here who still support us, and we're going to make this good for all of our children, not just the few, but all.
Alrighty, thank you so much, Nancy.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Have a great rest of your day.